The most amazing things in life just happen unplanned. The right circumstances and elements mingle together, and out of the swirl emerges surprising and original creations. This happened at Interplay in the mid-1990s, beginning with a programmer named Tim Kaine. What began as a game engine hobby project ended in the release of an instant classic, a work of incredible creativity and talent, the original Fallout game released for the PC in 1997. This is Too Much Coffee, episode 22. I'm Jason, he's Kevin, and today we're diving deep into Fallout. Kevin, my man. All right, we love this game.
Yes.
I'm assuming if you're listening to the show, you probably have played it. At the very least, you know what Fallout is. Everybody knows what Fallout is. There have been, 5 of them? We're going to start off pretty general and basic, and at some point we will move into spoiler territory, but at the beginning we're just going to kind of talk about how the game came to be, how it was even made, sort of the premise of the game, and like the big picture stuff about Fallout, and then we'll move into like the story and the specific things that happen in the game. So listen, if for some reason you have never played Fallout and you want to play it, you're free. Listen to the show for a little bit, and then when we start to get spoilery, just click it off. Yeah. Go play this awesome game, come back and listen to the rest of the show. It is so cheap. You can get it on GOG. Good old games for probably like 97 cents. I have no idea.
I mean, I didn't play this copy. It's in the storage unit somewhere, but I bought a DVD copy with Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics years ago for like $9.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever play Fallout Tactics?
I need to. I want to play it. It's probably the sort of thing I'd really be into.
Nobody ever talks about it, so it's probably terrible.
I need to
but
play
I've
it.
never played it. So Fallout was released in 1997, way back in 1997, with a guy named Tim Kaine. Okay, you probably never heard of Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine was just some guy working at Interplay. In his spare time, he was making a game engine. So that's how Fallout started. It was just a game. It was a guy working on a game engine.
Yeah.
And he was the only guy working on it for 6 months. It's so fun. It's really interesting when you read about the way games were made years and years and years ago, because you had like these people were all employed in these studios, and the studios were way smaller. We're not talking about like hundreds of people who were making like, freaking Halo or something like that. Could I have chosen an older game reference to use? They just released a new Halo game not long ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not like these studios had hundreds of people in them. They were just like, I don't know, 15, 20, 50, whatever.
Were there like 11 people working on Fallout for most of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would have all these people, and the guys would work on their games and their projects and stuff, but then sometimes they would just be working on their own stuff. Tim is working at Interplay, and he's working on this engine on the side, and then he just starts talking to people. He knew that the game leads working on other games would be really mad if he just started poaching their guys for his game project. So he was just like, all right, I've got some pizza. Come meet me in the conference room. I just want to talk about this thing I'm working on. And so he just started talking to people at Interplay and got him interested in his project.
Pizza works every time.
It's like all of the coolest things in life that just kind of happen. Penicillin is discovered. Post-it notes are created by accident. Yeah. And Fallout was made just because some guy was working on a game engine and just started talking to his creative friends at Interplay. And they were like, dude, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did this other thing? And they just all were talking about it and like trading ideas and stuff. They started with the ideas of wanting to do something like post-apocalyptic. They were big into role-playing games. So originally, for most of its development, Fallout was using the Gurps role-playing system. Yeah. Which, if you don't know, I mean, Gurps is not like a huge deal like D&D. Everybody knows what Dungeons and Dragons is, but not as many people know what Gurps is, I think.
It's the generic universal role-playing system.
Right. It was made by a guy named Steve Jackson in like the mid to late 80s. What just happened?
I got
Did you get shocked?
Yeah, I guess there was some sort of like grounding issue. Yeah, I got shocked. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt the show, but Kevin just like blasted himself on a piece of equipment. Yeah, that's not good.
I have to be a little careful in here.
You can't see where we are right now, but Kevin has got like 10 pieces of electronic equipment next to him.
Excuse me, they're synthesizers.
And something's wrong with it because he just put his elbow down on something and it blasted him.
I had my elbow down on the Mega FM.
Yeah.
and it shocked me when I
Yeah,
texted
don't
Mike.
do that again. Anyway, Gurps. Yeah, they were using Gurps from. It was going to be a Gurps game up until the very end, and then as they were, all the artwork was getting made and the story was getting finalized and all that stuff. And Steve Jackson, who's the Gurps guy, he's the one that sells the licenses to use the system, and they were going to use the system, but he was looking at the game and he was like, "I like what you've got, but I don't like this little cutesy, cartoony mascot guy." And I don't like, it was something else.
Yeah.
Something about the setting he didn't like. So he said, you can change that and use my license. And they didn't want to change it. It was fine because they ended up creating sort of their own system. Now, if you don't know, Fallout, if you've ever played any kind of role-playing game, you got your stats, your strength, your dexterity, your agility, charisma, all the basic D&D stuff. In Fallout, we have strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. I always like the idea of shooting my luck up to 10. But it's always a dump stat. I just take
it works in some games.
Stats.
When I played New Vegas, I dumped all my stats and luck, had like 100, and it worked just fine.
I think one of the coolest parts of Fallout is this character creation screen.
Yeah.
So you've got all those things that you spend points on that we just listed, and you've got skills. You've got. And they're really broken down. Small guns, big guns, energy weapons, unarmed attacks, melee weapons, throwing. Those are all combat skills. All different skills. First aid, doctor, sneak, lockpick, steel traps, science, repair, speech, barter, gambling, outdoorsman. There are some things, I played this game many times. I have never put a point into gambling.
I use first aid a lot.
I did use first aid a little bit, but my guy's got no skill in it, so you get almost no points back.
Yeah.
I just use stim packs like crazy.
I think everyone does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, the skills are flawed because a lot of this stuff you're never going to use.
Yeah.
Okay, when you play Fallout, you're not going to... Outdoorsman, I guess, is cool because I think you can avoid encounters. And I think you get special encounters on the map if you have a high outdoorsman skill.
So.
But whenever you need points for like important things like... lock picking and guns and fighting, or even stuff like stealing and speech. I'm not going to spend any of those points in outdoorsman until I've got all that other stuff up where I want it.
Yeah.
And what's weird is that you can take all these skills up to 200%.
Yeah.
But I've always read that 100% is all you need of anything.
I always just stop at 100. I've always heard, I get to 100 and then I just do something else.
So the way it works is you pick your stats, you put your points in your stats, you get your skills, you have points to spend on skills, and every time you gain a level, you get more skill points and you dump it in these things. And then you have optional traits, and this is genius. This is actually, if you play the game, it says Brian Fargo presents. Now, Brian Fargo is just like the guy in charge at Interplay, and he was not, he became more and more active in the game as it was being developed. Because Tim Kaine, I guess to get back to the story of how it was developed, Tim Kaine was working on this thing. People were getting interested in it. He finally had a team together, and they were working on it in off time.
Yeah.
Like not during official hours necessarily. So these guys were young, and they had all the time. They were just working like crazy. These young guys who could just pour time and energy and effort into making games.
Yep.
And apparently these guys were just like working 24/7, basically. You stop to sleep and eat, but otherwise you're working on games. Either the stuff that you're assigned at Interplay or this extracurricular activity, which was making Fallout. But at a certain point, it became sort of an official project. And it was actually almost canceled 2 or 3 times.
Yes.
Because they're like, marketing's like, we can't sell this.
Yeah.
There's too much competition with other games. It's like, what are you making? And why are people even going to buy this? But they persevered. Tim Kaine had a vision. He really wanted to make it. And he really fought for it. And Brian Fargo, who's the guy in charge of Interplay, ended up, he was playing the game as they were developing it, and he was really getting into it. So what would happen was, and before I tell you that part, the QA guys, the guys who have to play games to figure out bugs and figure out if things don't work and what needs to be balanced. So QA guys were playing Fallout. And there's a story where they were talking about the guy in charge of QA was saying he needed people to come in on the weekends to do overtime to catch up on some QA stuff, and nobody wanted to do it, even though they would get paid extra money.
Yep.
But they would come in on their own time for free to play Fallout.
Yep.
So people just loved it from the beginning. And Brian Fargo started playing the game, and he was calling Tim Kaine constantly, asking questions like, "I'm stuck here. What do I do? I can't do this thing. What do I need to do next?"
Yeah.
And it was his idea to do the traits. So the optional traits are things like fast metabolism, bruiser, small frame, one-hander, finesse, kamikaze, and they're just like special. They're just special characteristics your character might have. There's one trait where you miss more often, but when you do hit, you hit harder.
Yeah.
And there's another trait where you can carry more stuff.
Yeah.
And there's another trait where you do less damage in general, but your criticals are higher. There's a great trait that almost everybody probably takes, which is called Bloody Mess.
Yeah.
Where the kills are just outrageous.
It's very comical. I also like the Jinxed one a lot. We're both basically everyone in combat has more critical failures, which I find very amusing.
Oh, I don't think I've ever taken that one. Is that all it is? Is more critical failures?
Yeah.
So people are dropping their guns and missing turns?
I tend to find it to be very useful, actually, because all your enemies will drop their guns and shit all the time.
And actually, it does turn into it does turn into a comedy because people are dropping their weapons and shooting each other.
Yeah, and I have a very overactive imagination when I play RPGs. So in my brain, I just have the image in my head of like at every turn, all your enemies are just like dropping and like tripping over their shoelaces and stuff.
A guy falls down and drops a shotgun and blows another guy's head off.
Yeah.
And like, oh, my boot came untied.
It's all this absurd stuff. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it's kind of like D&D where if you roll a 20, it's a critical hit, but if you roll a 1, it's a critical miss, and something terrible can happen. I think even in D&D, and don't they even have like a chart of things that can happen? You roll another die. So like you roll a 1, critical miss, and then you can have a chart where you roll to see what happens. Like, oh, you gun jams. Oh, I guess it would be a gun in D&D. But
I don't think I've ever used a chart. It's just like critical failure, and then the DM just decides.
The fun is that the D&D gets to decide what awful thing happens.
I like the critical failures.
I've had a couple critical failures in my last game where like I would miss a turn and damage myself. Yeah. I love that.
More modern games can have critical failures.
And drugs are a big part of this game too. So you can have extra drug resistance, or you can have a perk where the drugs work better, but you're more likely to get addicted to drugs. And anyway, stuff like that. So it's a cool system. The only problem is really like the skills. Some of them are sort of useless. I played my last game with tons of science and repair skill and I picked. I put points into science, repair, lockpick, and steal because I wanted to do all that stuff and play a more non-combat oriented game.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. Now, maybe it's just my fault, but I ended up just gearing up and blowing things away anyway. I
actually gave myself a lot of science, too. I use science all the time in it, actually.
Really? What do you use it for?
I use it on computers all the time. You can hack into computers and stuff.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that. Because the way I wanted to play my game and the way I actually ended up playing my game were totally different. Let's talk about the premise of Fallout.
Ooh. The
premise is you're in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Okay?
Which, sounds overplayed now in 2022. But in the 90s, most CRPGs, I think essentially all of them, I can't remember the specific games, but the landscape was all just like swords and sorcery kind of D&D RPGs.
Yeah.
So it was very different from everything else at the time.
Yeah, this is in the midst of all that Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
It's sandwiched in the middle of things like Baldur's Gate and like Icewind Dale and all those Infinity Engine D&D role-playing games. Yeah, Fallout is sort of a spiritual successor to Wasteland.
Yeah.
Which Brian Fargo, who we already mentioned, worked on in the 80s. And it was a similar sort of post-apocalyptic open world game like Fallout is. And the guys who were working on Fallout had all played it and they loved Wasteland.
Yeah.
So that was part of where part of the flavor of Fallout came from was from Wasteland. But Fallout takes place in like a post-apocalyptic future. Yeah, like you said, we've heard that a million times. But this but let's go back to 1997.
Yeah, but this is 97.
Swords and sorcery, and D&D, Planescape, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, all that kind of stuff is being made. And then you've got Fallout plunked right in the middle of all this stuff. So there's been a global nuclear war. This is in the 21st century. And you just find yourself in the middle of this, what has the world become after this nuclear holocaust has happened? And you've been raised in a vault. Think of like a 50s style underground Fallout shelter. That's exactly what this is, except it's huge. It's designed to where the thing can purify its own water, and they have their own stores of food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
it's self-sustaining.
Yeah, it's a whole self-sustaining community in this Fallout shelter.
Yeah.
So that's the main character has been raised up in this environment. And at the start of the game, the Fallout shelter's in trouble because their water chip is failing.
Yeah.
That's their only source of clean, drinkable water. And so they basically drew straws and they're like, somebody's got to go out into the world and find a replacement for this thing. So
in my mind, I got way into my character, and I imagined my character. I used one of the pre-made characters in Natalia. And I like to imagine, it says something about her being like kind of a kleptomaniac. So I imagine her being like I gave her a lot of intelligence. I imagine her being kind of a bright but troubled person.
Yeah.
And they were just like, get rid of this person. Get her out of here.
Get her out of here.
And she ended up being the one to save the vault, basically. They said, I imagine they sent out a bunch of people, and she was the one who actually ended up saving
I like
the
to
vault.
think about, because you can make an idiotic character with like a 3 intelligence. And I like to imagine how dumb they would have to be to send that guy out to go get the water
I know,
chip.
it's absurd.
You can make a character like that, and they're like, "You're our only hope. Go out into the world and find
if your character
the
has
one thing that we need."
intelligence,
Yeah.
they can't even like talk to people really. They're just like one word.
Have you made a
responses.
character with 1 intelligence before? Why have I never done that?
All your responses like
Oh my god.
There's one, when you go to the first town and you talk about the rad scorpions. One of the dialogue options is your character says "Scorpion."
So good.
It's absurd.
So that's where the story starts. You've been tasked by the overseer of the vault to go find a replacement water chip.
Yep.
And then you're just released into the world. Now, what's cool about this game is it's truly open.
Oh yeah.
The guy does. You have a little computer system that's on your wrist. It's called the Pip-Boy. It's got some information, including a map, and the overseer knows about the location of another vault.
Yeah.
So the one piece of information you have is, I think there's a vault over here. He put that on your map. And otherwise, it takes you to the map screen, and it's just a big black mass with a vault off to the side that you can go visit. What's hilarious about that, actually, we are going to start to get into the story just a little bit here. Yeah. So if you don't want to know anything about what happens in Fallout and you want to play it fresh, it's an awesome game. Go play it right now. You can get it on GOG.
It's a great game, and it's a relatively short and small.
It's very short. It's a bite-sized game, but there's a lot in it.
Yeah.
You can buy it cheap on GOG right now, and it will run on your computer. Well, I'm not going to say it'll run perfectly because I do run it with some sort of fix-it program thing.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't know if you have to do that.
I ran the GOG version. It was fine.
I think it's fine.
Although, interestingly enough, the GOG version is actually the European version.
I can't remember exactly why I did all that stuff because it's been so long since I installed it. But anyway, go play it. So what I love, they drop you into the world.
Yeah.
It's all just blackness.
Yeah.
They say, okay, there's a vault over here. And what's funny, though, is, okay, if you go directly to that vault, let's say you're like, okay, I'm going to start there. And it is a good place to start because there's a lot of supplies in there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of really wimpy enemies, so you can get some easy experience points to gain a couple levels.
Yeah.
But if you go over there first thing and you try to enter the vault, you can't because you need a freaking rope.
Yep.
So it's a total waste.
Yeah.
The first time you play the game, you'll go over there and you're like, God, I can't even get in because I need a rope and there's no rope around. So you're going to have to explore a little bit.
Of course, conveniently, if you just click the Vault 15 button, it walks you right across the town.
The only way that you're able to find things is you just explore the map.
Yeah.
But you can talk to anybody in any of these towns and you can ask them about stuff. So you could go to the first town you come across and say, hey, tell me about this place.
Yeah.
They'll tell you all about the town you're in. Or you can say, tell me about whatever you've heard about. And you can ask them about towns. And people will tell you information about towns. And if someone tells you about something, sometimes it'll mark it on your map.
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you where it is, and then you'll have a new place to explore. So it's very organic, and actually it's not, you could imagine a system where you're just on an open world map like that, and it'd be really irritating because you can't find anything.
Yeah.
But there's something about the way Fallout works where you're talking to people and getting information. Your map just kind of fills out, and it's not a big. And the map, it's generous in that if you just wander around, you're gonna find something.
Yeah, it's well placed. Everything is.
It's not hard to find places, and the game it's a pretty small game.
Yeah.
It's a very bite-sized game. Like there's a fair amount of stuff to do, but it's a very quick game to get into to figure things out.
If you don't know what to do, there's a lot to explore and to learn about in the game, but it's not overly long. If you do know what to do, you can beat the game in no time.
Yeah.
You could probably beat it in under an hour if you know what to do.
I'm sure you can.
As a matter of fact, I know you can't because I watched that video of the guy who did the pacifist run. And he wasn't really speedrunning. He just went through the game and he beat it like 30 minutes or something like that.
I've got to do a pacifist run where I kill no one.
Yeah.
I told you I wanted to do that, but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. I don't think it would be hard.
The towns are what you would imagine, like if you're post-apocalyptic. So you go into this town and it's just like people dressed in rags.
Yeah.
And there are different places. Like some places are doing pretty well. You'll have a place like the LA Boneyard, okay?
Yeah.
Where there is some sort of order, but it's basically two gangs warring over the same territory. So when you go to the Boneyard, you find yourself in the midst of this gang situation. You can completely ignore it. See, most of the quests, 99% of the quests in the game are optional. You don't have to do much of anything. You can simply you'll probably end up doing a lot of stuff because you need levels and experience, and you don't know what to do when you're playing the game, so you're just trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And as you're just exploring and talking to people, you get caught up in their conflicts, and you end up helping. But if you know what to do, you don't have to do much of anything in the game.
Yeah, true.
But like when you go to the Boneyard, you can get caught up in their conflict, and you can help one side win over the other.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, like, for instance, in that one conflict, I've played through that part of the game many times, and it shakes out in many different ways. Like this past playthrough I did for this episode that we're doing now, we played through the game again.
Yeah.
And this past playthrough I did, you got the grumpy guy who's running the town, and he wants the other guys killed.
Yeah.
And he's like, take out the gang leader. You go over there to take out the gang leader. Yeah. And she's like, no, it's not what you think. And you end up on this whole, you go down this whole rabbit hole, and you end up with this evidence that things are not what you think it is. And I take it to the guy. And I remember in the past, I took the evidence to the guy. The guy ended up surviving. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but as soon as I handed him the disc, the guy got angry. And then the gang member standing next to him just shot him.
Yeah, that's what happened to me this time.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever had that happen exactly like that before.
Yeah.
Maybe the last time I did it, I took out the other gang leader.
Yeah.
But what you're getting from all this conversation is things can shake out in any number of ways.
Yeah.
And every time you play the game, problems are resolved in different ways based on your character.
Yeah.
And what you decide to do.
It's just a series of. It's my favorite way for a game to be made, which is where it's just a bunch of it's a series of systems.
Yeah,
they just kind of work together. Breath of the Wild is another good example of a game like that, where it's just a bunch of systems that work together and things can work out in different ways. So it's not like I could rant about. I'm doing air quotes cinematic games. It's not like a cinematic game where they have a way they want the game to shake out and they don't want you fucking with it.
Right.
So like in that example, when you're done talking. The regulator guy, who is one of the gangs, can shoot Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Well, the weapon, it's just a mechanic in the game. So the weapon can miss or do less damage to him, and Zimmerman can survive, I assume.
Yeah,
it's not something that's like a cutscene that they planned out, and it has to operate this way. It's
Boy, when it hit, though,
when
in my game, it hit him for 250 damage, and it killed him.
Or it can do that,
I know what you mean. The system, like there are systems in place, and it just happens. And like you said, the guy could miss, and then you could take him out, and Zimmerman might survive. What's cool about the open nature of the world is that it applies to the morality too. So, like if you play a game like Mass Effect, it's good guy or bad guy. Which path do you choose? Or a game like I think Fable's like that.
I think of
Will
Infamous.
you be the good guy?
Yeah.
Will you be the bad guy?
Yeah. It's like you can either, save these Girl Scouts or throw them into like a incinerator or something.
Throw them in.
Yeah.
Yes. Will you buy cookies from the Girl Scouts? Will you kick them over the side of this cliff? and steal their cookies. In this game, it's the morality is also open. So there's a karma system, and
once again, it's just another system that works.
Yeah.
In the game.
You can do whatever you want at any time. You can do, quote, good things. You can do, quote, bad things. A lot of times, it's not 100% clear what the, quote, good thing would be.
Yeah.
It's just a different scenario. And even at the end of the game, what you thought was the best thing to do at the time does not always have the greatest effect on the game.
Yeah.
At the end. But you don't know. You're just making decisions. And instead of having a morality system where it's like, here's the number of good points you have, and here's the number of bad points you have. What they have is a karma sort of reputation system. So you build a reputation, and the reputation is specific to each location.
Yeah.
So, for instance, in my last playthrough, in that, what we were just talking about in the boneyard, I don't know what I did, but I ended up, I know what I did. Okay, so the two gang members are fighting.
Yeah.
You end up fighting against the regulators, which is what I was doing, but I had a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Okay. So I turned the flamethrower into a regulator, but a regular citizen of the town was standing right next to him, and I accidentally torched him too.
Yeah.
So my karma in the city tanked.
Yeah.
And now when I go into that town, because I wanted to repair they have a well, and you can repair the well there.
Yeah.
I wanted to go in and repair the well, but anytime I walk into the city, everybody in the town attacks me on sight. So I can't go back into the town.
Yeah.
And that's the way the karma system works. You end up with a reputation around town, and people react to you based on what you've done.
And there's sort of the infamous one, which is not in the GOG version because it's the European version. In the American version, you have children in the game and you can kill them.
Oh yeah.
But you get a trait, it's the child killer.
Yeah, the Europeans wouldn't even put it out.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
But the American version, like you said, you could do it, but you would get a reputation as a complete monster.
The only people you can hang out with are just like the worst people.
Yeah. And the karma is localized. So you could be a champion in one town and be an outcast in another town. One thing about the game that's a little controversial is that timer, because when you first start the game, your vault is running out of water.
Yeah.
So you have to get the water chip before they run out of water. The timer is fairly generous. Yeah. And if you know exactly where the water chip is, it's zero problem at all.
Oh, yeah.
But I have definitely lost games where I was just wandering around the world and didn't know what I was doing, and the timer ran out, and then you lose.
I don't think I've ever run out of time on the water timer.
I've done it, yeah.
I like the water timer. I don't so much like... I know they patched out later, and it's a 13-year time limit now, which you will just never go over. But it did originally have... there's a whole section after the water chip where you have to take out the Super Mutant Master. Uh-huh. And it had like a 500-day limit or something like that on that originally. Huh. But it wasn't like, it didn't tell you. And it still kind of has a time limit where if you take too long, the Super Mutants will overrun certain areas, I think.
Really?
Like Necropolis.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, because when I went back to Necropolis way later, all the ghouls were dead. It was just Super Mutants.
Wow. Okay, see, this is why this game is so cool.
Yeah.
Because you'll be talking to somebody about your playthrough.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell you stuff like this. And you're like, I had no idea it would do that.
Yeah, I think the controversy was that the Super Mutant section originally had it didn't tell you about it. It just had a 500-day timer.
Okay.
And so you could run out of time.
Well, they talk about it throughout the course of the game that something is happening, and these guys are multiplying. These mutants are spreading around and attacking caravans and attacking people. That's one of the things that you run into as you travel around the world. Is like these caravans are being attacked by something.
Yep.
You can do a whole mystery quest about that in one of the towns where they're like, somebody keeps attacking these caravans. We have no idea what's going on, and you can track down and find out what happens.
Yep.
The environment of the game is awesome. Like the art. What really makes this game stand out is its style.
Yeah.
The style of the game is post-apocalyptic, but it's almost like if this had happened in the 50s. That's what the robots have, this old school black and white movie 50s vibe.
All the computers and technology are big. There's no transistors. It's all vacuum tube computers and stuff like that.
Yeah, when you open the screens, there are vacuum tubes and wires hanging out, and everything looks old. Everything looks 50s like.
The water chip has a bunch of tubes on it.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
And the manuals and the manual looks like an old Fallout Shelter manual, like an old school manual. It's got their mascot is like the little 50s looking cartoon Vault Boy. And it's just everything about that mishmash of 50s style plus post-apocalyptic wasteland.
Yeah.
And you can hear the music in the background. I've got the music playing while we're talking about this to set the mood.
Baby.
But the music is all ambient and atmospheric because Tim Kaine said, he said, for the music, I want them to think nothing about it while it's playing. But if the music was gone, you would miss it.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the music in this game is fantastic. It's ambient, has the right tone. It's just a little twisted. Like you can hear like almost this Wild West twang.
Yeah.
Along with this menacing like sound pad sort of sound
I love the music
going on.
Although interestingly, the composer is Mark Morgan. When he composed the music, he said Interplay just gave him like a CD that had no information on it, and they said we want music that's kind of like this, and so he just made music that was kind of like that.
He had no idea what he was composing for.
Yeah. Well, I think he knew what game it was, but he didn't know the music. He didn't know any of the artists, stuff like that. So some of the music is actually very similar to like real artist music out there, which I didn't know until recently, and I feel like kind of an idiot in some cases because there's one that's very similar to an Aphex Twin, and I'd heard the song before, and I was like, oh, now I hear it. The Overworld music, is a lot like the Aphex Twin song Windowsill.
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of stuff like that.
The music is so
most
good.
of it's enough of a change that it's clearly its own thing.
Yeah,
but some of it's pretty close.
Yeah. That's kind of how like movie studios work too.
Yeah.
Is they'll say we want it to sound like this.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in movies, it sounds so close, like you could almost be sued for copyright infringement.
Yeah,
which I'm not saying is what happened in this game.
Yeah,
but, that's just how it.
Which Mark Morgan is great. I love his music. But
so the music is great, the artwork is great, and it's everything's sort of that almost isometric view, that sort of you walk on a hexagonal tile system. Everything is pixel art. It was made in 640 by 480, which was huge at the time.
High res, baby.
It was high res at the time. I love that kind of old school pixel art.
Me too.
I just like that style. I think it holds up.
This is a very specific thing, but for some reason I love the look of like very obvious dithering.
Yeah, the dithering is, you can see it's very grainy looking
so
game.
Much.
Yeah. Because they have 256 colors to work with in this game, but it was slightly under that for certain reasons I can't recall exactly. And they do some sort of color cycling, which had something to do. But anyway, it was a 256 color, 640 by 480 resolution pixel game. And I love that style of artwork. And there are a few places where you talk to some people who are important and it's a 3D render of a head.
Yeah.
But what they really did is an artist would make a clay rendering of the head.
Yeah.
Okay, so they would build a character's face out of clay. And they kind of did this on Doom too. Like,
they did.
The monsters in Doom, one of the reasons they look so 3D and awesome in the original Doom is because they were literally made out of clay and scanned into a computer.
Yep.
And that's sort of what they did on Fallout. So they would make the person's head out of clay, and then they would do some really expensive, really time-consuming, laborious process of scanning it into the computer in some way, and then they would animate it. Apparently, they wanted to do a lot more of those talking heads in the game, but apparently it was so expensive and so time-consuming. I mean, I'm talking about weeks to do one person. They were like, we just can't do. We can't keep doing this. So they're like, I don't know, maybe 10 in the whole game or something like that.
Have some great voice actors in there too.
Yeah,
with the talking heads.
Ron Perlman did the
Perlman does the narration.
Introduction. Yeah,
Tony J, who does the voice of the Super Mutant Lieutenant.
Who's Tony J?
He did all sorts of characters in 90s cartoons. If you know Reboot, the character Megabyte. Got that deep voice.
Vaguely.
Got Pamela Adlon did Nicole, the Followers of the Apocalypse leader.
Getting back to the world for a second, you've got these shanty towns run by gangs. You've got the game is full of gangs that you can have. You could join a gang if you want to. You could take a gang out if you want to. There's one gang that has kidnapped a girl, and you go in there. You can go save her.
Yeah.
And to illustrate, for instance, that one quest, there are always different ways to take care of things. So you could try to talk your way through it. You could fight your way through it. You could sneak in, bribe. For that particular quest, I think you can do all those things to save her.
Yeah.
You could sneak in the back door. and sneak out with her. You could just go in and blow everybody away.
Yep.
You can go in and use your speech skill on the gang leader.
Garl, Death Hand.
I think you end up having to pay a ransom. Like he wants 1,000 caps or something like that. You could pay him and just take her that way.
I didn't do that this time.
Yeah.
I kind of played a more combat oriented game this time, so I just went in like blasted.
Yeah. I ended up doing that too. I didn't mean to, but it's just what happened. Why don't we just talk about our playthroughs a little bit? Because this sounds like a natural place to do that. So like, my idea playing through this time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make a guy. I always want to do the speech guy who talks his way through everything, like charisma and intelligence. It's like, well, this time I'm dumping my charisma for charisma.
Yeah.
I still have a high intelligence because I wanted the skill points, but I said I'm gonna do science, repair, sneaking, lockpicking, stealing, all that kind of stuff, and I'm just going to try to like sneak through the game and talk my way through it. Well, my speech skill wasn't great, so I really couldn't talk my way through it, but I don't know. I just wanted to like mess around with machines and sneak in and lockpick everything and do that. But either I just did it totally wrong or I just defaulted to the way I think I just I think I just have a way of playing games. It's like it's my default mode of playing games, and I just want to do that. Even though I intended fully to do something else, I ended up doing something else.
Yeah.
Something different. So, I guess what helped was on my way to the first town, and this has never happened to me ever, but on my way to the very first town, because I knew I needed a rope before I could go to the vault.
Yeah.
So I was going to go get a rope. I ran into this. As you walk along the map, you get these random encounters sometimes. It doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while you'll run into some scenario.
Yeah.
And this one was two crews of gang members fighting each other. The guys in the leather jackets and then the guys in the metal armor.
Yep.
Okay? So I just stood to the side because they weren't messing with me. So I just stood to the side and watched the whole battle, play itself
just
out.
Let them go. Yeah.
Yeah. And one side trounced the other side. I think there was one guy left.
Yep.
And so I just started looting bodies. And so I got guns, ammo, and I got a set of metal armor.
Yes.
Which in that game is crazy expensive. It's very difficult to get.
Yeah.
Because it costs so much. And plus, if you're playing a pacifist, I don't know how you would do this. I'd have to work out a system for it. But if you were playing a pacifist game, it would be difficult to get money to do stuff.
Yeah.
Because really, the easiest way to get things in the game is to just blow people away and take their stuff.
True. Just sell it. Yeah.
So, anyway, I got the metal armor early. So like rats, all the enemies at the beginning of the game could do absolutely nothing. They would hit you and you would take no damage.
Yeah.
So I was just blazing through the first third of the game because nothing could do anything.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't find stuff to science on. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff for me to repair or science on, and I just ended up playing like I always do, which is blowing people away and taking their stuff.
Yeah, well, it's not nice. You can get key cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I usually do play the charismatic, highly intelligent character. My character still had a lot of intelligence, but I went more combat oriented this time because I never really do that.
Yeah.
I didn't do big guns. I did small guns, and I gave my character a one-handed skill, so it was just pistols the whole time, which I kind of regretted a little bit later, but it was still fine.
Yeah.
When you get the 14mm pistol, that one does a lot of damage. Also has a hilariously loud gunshot sound. It's like it's like 9 decibels louder than everything else in the game. I kind of had a similar experience to you with the Raiders, where you got good equipment early on. Except I went to the Raider camp, and I just picked one of the guys off, and I just
and it took his stuff.
It took his stuff.
Yeah.
So I got some decent armor early on, and took out the Rad Scorpions. I had a high science skill. I think I'd put points into repair later. I put points into speech as the game went on. I used repair and science a lot, especially when you get to the military base.
Yeah.
You can use the repair skill in the force fields, not the red ones. You use repair skills to temporarily disable the yellow ones.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So I use it a lot.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because I haven't used it on anything. I think I used it on the water thing in the necropolis to fix that, but I don't think you even need repair skill to do that. You just need the part.
Yeah,
I
don't think you do.
Yeah.
It's kind of a specific skill, but I did use it a lot in the military.
I have a feeling, I think in Fallout 2, you can use that stuff more from the beginning of the game. I think. So I might try that.
I
But
feel like you can, but I don't remember exactly.
and it might just be because I'm skipping a lot of the quests where it would be more useful. But really, in the first game, you really just want to be able to talk and shoot.
Yeah.
Being able to sneak is helpful.
Those are the big ones, yeah.
Being able to sneak is helpful. Like I did use sneak. So I went to the necropolis basically first thing after I got myself equipped and got a couple levels. I went straight to the necropolis so I could get the water chip and just do that so I wouldn't have to worry about time anymore.
Yeah.
So there are some super mutants between you and the water chip.
Yeah.
And there was no way I was going to be able to take them out. So I actually snuck by them. Now, the sneak still came handy there. I could just sneak by them. Because if you don't have sneak, that guy accosts you, and he's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And he ends up taking you to the military base or like just gunning you down or whatever. Actually, I did try to take them out like 3 or 4 times, and they just... I could sort of handle the guys who were just punching you, but then some guy would come out with a flamethrower or something and just burn me to a crisp.
Yeah, towards the end of the game, if you're not really geared up, it gets a little crazy. I was really reloading a lot of those battles, just like hoping for good luck, basically. I mean, I was probably a little under level too. I think I beat the game at level 11 or something like that.
The crits can be off the wall. Like,
yeah,
you can be fighting somebody and doing fine, and then all of a sudden they will critical hit you for like 4 or 5 times the normal damage and just decimate you.
I remember too when you go through the cathedral, you're supposed to go to the top level and fight Morpheus or talk to him and get that key or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's just like a super mutant right there in the room when you walk in there. It's an unavoidable fight. He just fights you immediately.
Yeah.
Has a flamethrower.
Yeah.
So just immediately I just get toasted.
Torches you. Flamethrowers in this game are ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. And I kept trying to have my party members survive, but at some point I was just like, it's not going to happen, buddy.
See, my guy stinks because I didn't make him for combat. His agility, my guy's agility, his strength is 1 point too low. His agility is a little too low because, like, for instance, shotgun takes like 5 points to use. So this game, by the way, I forgot to explain this, but it uses a point system, turn-based combat point system. Yeah. So every action that you take takes a certain amount of points.
Yeah.
So to shoot this gun takes 4 points. To attack with a knife takes 3 points. To use a flamethrower takes 6 points, whatever. And so based on your agility, you have more points to use to take actions. Now, my guy's agility, I can't remember the number, but his agility is just like a point too low because, like, I can shoot my shotgun 1 time, but I don't have enough points to shoot again.
Yeah.
So
that was
I can reload or I can take like 3 steps. But I can only do basically 1 attack per turn. Yeah. So it's like it makes the battles take longer than they should because my guy can't do squat. I'm just running around all over the place.
that was one of those things I permanently was like, man, I wish I'd put another point in. I should have. I did technically cheat very slightly in this game.
Oh yeah,
raise a save editor because my character originally had 3 strength, but like every weapon has a minimum of like strength requirement of 4.
Yeah.
So I basically used a save editor and took a point out of luck and put it in strength.
And you've got to have some strength because you can't carry anything.
Yeah.
I have 5 strength, which is not bad, really. Yeah. You would think, but I have to shuffle around so much stuff just to carry the things I need to carry.
I didn't have too many problems, but I also had companions.
Yeah.
At a party.
Yeah.
And you can store essentially everything in there.
You know, we should talk about the companions for just a second because they're so stupid. Like, I never use companions just because I don't want the bother, but there's a few people you can get to join your party, and dog meat, which is the dog.
Yeah.
Like, so you can get like Ian, and he has like a submachine gun, and just like, which is an awesome weapon in that game, and he's got his leather jacket on.
It's awesome, except that he always just like blasts you with it on burst fire.
Yeah, if you're in the way, he'll fire the gun at somebody else and then blow you away because you're too close. And I love that when enemies get in each other's way and they're just blowing each other away.
Me too.
Or he'll just charge right in and get himself killed.
Yeah.
It's like you feel like you're having to babysit your own teammates. Like, I just want you to help. Because you have no control over them. They do what they want to do.
That's my biggest gripe. I like when RPGs have kind of a little bit of a mechanical focus. It's one of the things I like about Wasteland 2 versus like the Fallout games. I'm kind of comparing 2 games from 2 different eras, but you know, the Wasteland games are a lot more like you have a lot of control over your party.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to control like Ian or Katja, whoever, every turn, but I wish I could like pick what
manipulate their
weapons they use.
behavior in some way.
Yeah, I wish I could give them some tactics, but they kind of just do their thing.
Apparently, the companions were implemented late in the development of the game.
Oh, interesting. I don't
Like
think I knew
it was almost tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
And I think Tim Kaine was saying that it was done through scripting instead of through coding.
Yeah.
Now I'm not a
Interesting.
programmer, so I don't really understand what all that means. But
Yeah.
basically, it meant it could be done quickly, in an easier way, and it was just done at the end. And Brian Fargo loved it. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh yes, I love having companions to help me out in the game."
Yeah, I like having the party, and they're handy sometimes. Plus, I think I mentioned this on Twitter. I'll get into this in a minute, but I had this sort of narrative for the companions in my head.
Yeah,
But like,
you're role playing.
I know
you're role playing.
Oh my god, I've got a whole story. In the section where you're supposed to kill the Deathclaws in a boneyard for the gun runners, I had this thing where I would like throw a couple plasma grenades at a Deathclaw and do a shit ton of damage to him, and then I would just run around the map and have my companions just blast the Deathclaw until it died.
So the Deathclaw wouldn't attack the companions, kill them?
Yeah, he would just follow me. I would just have it chase me, and then my companions would keep blasting.
That was
it.
an interesting part too, because my guy, I had pretty good armor and okay weapons, and you think like you're doing really well.
Yeah.
I couldn't take out the super mutants at the beginning of the game, but I'd gained a bunch of levels since then, and then I get to the Deathclaws.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, let's see how this goes. So you come up to a Deathclaw, they're so terrifying because they look. They're based on the Tarask from D&D. So you see this thing and it spots you all the way across the map, and then in one turn it runs all the way up to you. It has so many points and it moves fast, and it whacks you pretty hard. I had metal armor on, or I think I had the military armor on at that point because it was lighter. So anyway, the armor's pretty good, but every once in a while he would just critical hit you or something, just completely decimate you. So I'd have to take them out one at a time, and I didn't have enough strength to hold all the flamethrower fuel that I needed to take these guys out, because you're not taking them out with a shotgun. At least I wasn't. So I had to have a flamethrower, which and you still have to hit them like 5 times just to take one out.
Oh yeah, in the game, if you want, I think there is a way you can see their actual hit points. But if you want to know how
you can get a perk to do that. Yeah.
But generally, if you want to know how close to death or your enemy is, you can use a little spyglass on them, and it says they're unhurt, they're wounded, severely wounded, or almost dead.
Yeah.
You can't really rely on that with a Deathclaw, because they'll say almost dead, and you still have to hit them so much because they have so many hit points.
Yeah, you're hitting him for like 55, 60 damage, and you're just hit 4 or 5, 6 times.
Oh, please God!
And then what happens is you kill all the guys, and then you find the downstairs to the nest. You go down there, and there's the mother Deathclaw, which is even stronger, even has more, hits harder, and has more health than the others.
Yep.
And I hate to say it, but I had to save Scum just to kill it, because I fought it. It kept taking me out. And so I had to save every round. This was the only part of my game where I did this, but like I just don't have time for that crap. So I had to save Scum.
I saved Scum later in the game too.
I'd get a good hit, save it. She'd hit me, and like, oh, great, she missed twice. Let's save that. And I would just keep doing that until I finally took her out. It was the only way I could do it at the time.
No, I understand. I had to save Scum a bunch too late in the game. Like I said, in the cathedral, I was trying to save my party members, so I would just like try every possibility on every turn.
You see why this game is so much fun? Listen to the way that we're talking about this game. This game is great, and it's a different experience every time you play it. Every time you play the game is a completely different experience. And you can make it, like you can make yourself a complete idiot, but make yourself extremely powerful, and then you would have to take everything out. I'd like to do a run where I completely nerfed my combat, gave myself 3 strength, but then had really high intelligence, charisma, speech. Maybe like lock picking and stealing or something like that, so I can get around having to be able to kill things, and just make yourself have to go through the whole game without doing combat. Because if you got 3 strength, you can't do squat. You can't even hold guns.
No, you can't do anything.
I mean, you can barely carry things. My guy has 5 strength. I can barely wear my armor, carry 2 weapons, the ammunition that you need. So like I have the ammo for the flamethrower, but it's so heavy I cannot carry a lot of it at a time. So I have to buy more as I need it. And just crap like that at 5. So if you drop yourself down to 3, you can't do squat. You carry some key cards. That's about it.
You need to keep some party members you can just use as mules.
No armor, no weapons. Just go through the whole game just like that. That'd be interesting.
It's a game I wish I could play for the first time again, honestly.
Yeah. Actually, I do enjoy kind of having the lay of the land, so that I do like knowing what I'm doing a little bit.
Yeah. Which in this playthrough, I think I'd done the water chip section a lot more than I did the second half of the game, the super mutant section.
Yeah.
Because when I did the water chip, I knew exactly what to do. When it got to the super mutant, I was like, I don't remember what to do. So I did have a little bit of that experience.
It's so funny because you could start the game and be like, I'm going to go this way.
Yeah.
If you go to the right, that's where all the rats are, all the pig rat things are. You can kill those, no problem.
Yeah.
If you go to the left, that's where the super mutants live. So you're going to go left, keep going, like, oh, I wonder what's over here. And then you're going to get into a random encounter on the map. There's going to be 5 super mutants.
Yep.
One of them is going to shoot you with a laser rifle and just cut you in half.
Yep.
That's something else about this game, too. I mean, you can turn off the gruesomeness if you want to.
Yeah.
Or you can dial it up with the bloody mess trait. But the deaths are pretty interesting. Like
they're absurd.
If you torch someone with a flamethrower, they catch on fire and they start flailing around and they turn
kinda
into
run around
ashes on the ground. If a super mutant shoots you with a laser rifle, it's basically cuts you in half. Like someone used a chainsaw in the middle of you and you just sort of are
part
in
of
two pieces.
The vibe of the post-apocalypse.
Yeah. And you've got spears and knives and I actually was using an electric cattle prod for a while, which was surprisingly good. You could use a power fist, was like an electrified fist or something like that. You have tons of different weapons like shotguns and rifles and different types of pistols. Some are automatic. You use different calibers.
Yep.
You got the flamethrower. Then you get the big stuff like the rocket launcher, flamethrower, plasma rifles, miniguns, all that crazy, ridiculous stuff.
I will say one of my favorite parts in the entire game that cracked me up is in the military base. Initially, I got caught, and I tried to go through that way, but I couldn't do it. So later on, I just went in the front door, basically, and just like blew shit away.
Yeah.
If you walk in the front door, there's 3 super mutants there. I think 2 of them have miniguns. One has a rocket launcher. Sometimes the guy with the rocket launcher would go first and hit you and just blow everyone up, including like the other super mutants. It would just blow everyone up.
Pretty early in this playthrough, I was relying on grenades, which is funny because I've never relied on grenades before.
I use them a ton.
They're awesome.
The game,
But I would let guys crowd together. But one funny thing about the system is that throwing is a specific skill. So if you're not good at it, there's no telling what's going to happen when you throw a grenade.
Oh, yeah.
So I would throw a grenade. I'm trying to throw it just far enough to damage a whole group of guys, but not so close that I blow myself up.
Yep.
But I can't tell you how many times I just blew myself up with a grenade trying to take out a whole group of guys.
Yep. This is, once again, a brief aside, but one of the shittier things I do in Fallout 4 sometimes. Because Bethesda got a Bethesda, and they make NPCs essential and unkillable. You can have companions in it. So I just let my companion get swarmed by whatever enemy, and I just like throw a Molotov on everybody. My companion included, because they can't die. And they don't suffer any like karma loss with them if you hit them with a weapon or whatever.
You know, speaking of that, there's a great YouTube channel called, his name is Nerbit.
Nerbit?
Nerbit. And he plays Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas, and Oblivion, and Skyrim, and stuff like that. But he just makes these challenges for himself. He's like, I'm going to play the entire game with the toy knife. I'm going to play the entire game as the baby. I'm going to play the entire game and kill every single person in the entire world. And that's what every video is. It's pretty entertaining.
No, grenades, especially when you get plasma grenades later in the game. I use those all the time.
Plasma grenades are dope.
Yep.
Frag grenades are dope. And the EMP grenades. All right, let me tell you this. If you're playing the game, you may not know this, but if you're playing the game and you come into contact with any robots at all, you need to have EMP grenades because they will body the robots instantly. And it's like an instant 130 damage or something.
Which, you know, I didn't think about it. I don't think I actually used them in this game.
And they can't harm you.
Yeah.
So, like, I went to the glow and I went down to the bottom and turned the power back on.
Yeah.
Which means the robots, and you could kill, and I thought about it, I was like, I could just kill all the sentries before you turn the power back on, and then they're dead when you.
What I did.
But of course, I didn't do it. So, but I had EMP grenades, so I just let them crowd around me, and then I just drop a grenade right where I'm standing, and it takes them all out.
Oh, that's a good
one
plan.
shot.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Another element of the game. Now you're in a nuclear Holocaust wasteland.
Yeah.
So there are locations that are radioactive.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't talk about this enough. Radiation is a big part of the game. So radiation has caused mutations with animals, with people, and everywhere you go, you can get. And actually, they're really expensive in the game, but you can get like radiation medicine or pills to increase your radiation resistance and things like that. Because
Which I never bought any. I just found it in the world.
Well, I know enough about the game. I know that there's this one, and I don't feel bad about it because he's a scummy drug dealer, but I know there's this one drug dealer you can kill.
Interesting.
At the hub, and he has so much of every pill and medication in the game that you make a ton of money selling the stuff you don't want to use, and then you have all the rat away and rat X that you need for the rest of the game easy.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So anyway, there are a few places you go where you're going to get busted with radiation, and if you get 1,000 points of radiation, you die.
Yeah.
But if you get less than that, I think you can actually get mutations. It's been a very long time since I've done that. But you can get extremely sick so that it affects your stats. And it's, at the very least, it damages you big time. So you have to have anti-radiation medicine to combat that. Like when the Brotherhood of Steel sends you to the glow to find that disc. Yeah. There are certain areas that really hit you with bad radiation, so you need the medicine to keep yourself from dying.
Hit up that Rad-X, baby.
That's another scummy spot. Ropes in this game are the worst. So if you go to the vault at the very beginning, you try to go down there without a rope, you can't. So you got to go find one. Even worse, later in the game, and maybe that was their lesson to you, to like always keep a rope. Because later, much later in the game, if you want to join the Brotherhood of Steel and they send you all the way down to what's called the Glow, which is another vault,
it's basically
you can't get into it if you don't have a rope. Yeah. And I forgot that this time. So I went all the way down there.
I did too.
And I clicked on the thing, and the game tells you, oh, you're not going to get down there just by clicking on a beam or something like that. It's like, God, I forgot I need a stupid rope. So you have to go all the way back, find a rope, go all the way back down.
And the funny thing, too, is like, my character for most of the game had 3 strength, so I couldn't carry a lot. And I kept bumping up against my limits. I was like, okay, what is driving so much of my weight limit? Because it seemed like I could drop stuff and I was still carrying so much. I realized ropes weigh like 10 pounds or something like that. I had like 4 of them, so it was like 40 pounds.
Yeah, the ammo can screw you. The stim packs can screw you. Even medicines can screw you. Some like first aid kits can screw you. It's surprising how much that stuff weighs.
About 5 pounds, I think.
Yeah, at one point I had like 7 or 8 first aid kits.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about how heavy they were until... Because my strength sucks, so now I couldn't carry anything. It's like,
I just kept all that stuff on Ian and stole it back out of his inventory whenever I needed it. So radiation's fun. It's also kind of a plot point in the game.
Yeah, it is.
Since the super mutants want your people because they've been unaffected by radiation, and the virus they use to transform people into super mutants will work better on you.
I guess I won't spoil the story. If you've listened this far and you haven't played it, I won't tell you the ultimate ending of the story. But basically, you have to find the water chip to save your people, but the story is bigger than that. And there's another thing that you have to do to fully beat the game. And I will say, too, that the ending of the game is great. And I won't spoil that either, because it's sort of a twist at the end, which just fits the tone of the game perfectly. Like, it's the perfect ending to this game.
It's perfect.
It's how it has to end.
And it's interesting. It's been so long, I kind of forgot it does a lot of stuff that I like. When you get towards the end of the game, especially with the final guy you have to deal with. Yeah. It's got some like body horror aspects and stuff like that, which I like.
Yes, he's horrific.
Yeah. And I love
that guy is awesome.
Yeah, he's wild.
Yeah.
And I said this in the Star Wars episode when we talked about Rogue One, how it's my favorite Star Wars anything. And part of that is because I love stories that are just like, they have an arc and they just end. There's kind of not really... There is a sequel to it that is somewhat direct.
Right.
But the story is just the story, and there's not, like, much room elsewise.
It's totally self-contained.
Yeah, it says a self-contained story. That's how Fallout is to me.
Fallout is a perfect bite-sized, self-contained story. Yeah. It's a total story, a total arc. I mean, your character doesn't speak, so the character is really just you and what you imagine your character to be. It's role-playing in that sense. Like, you're truly playing a role. You've created a character with a name. with certain stats and certain certain abilities and certain detriments, and you are playing that character in the world, and you just kind of have to imagine your part. I mean, you do pick dialogue options. Yeah, the final boss is awesome. And you're right, Fallout 2 does find a connection to Fallout 1. Maybe we'll talk about Fallout 2 one day. I don't have nearly as much experience with Fallout 2 because it's a much bigger game.
Yeah.
And I just haven't. As a matter of fact, I've never even beaten the game.
Yeah.
Like I've played it a bunch of times and done a lot of quests and gone around and done different things.
Yeah.
But I've never actually completed the game.
I like
one
Fallout
time.
2. I've beaten it. I don't think I like it as much as the first one. But it's connected. It's not really entirely like a direct sequel, though.
Yeah.
It has connections to it. It's kind of in the same way as like, well, that might be a niche reference, but like Shin Megami Tensei 2 is somewhat of a direct sequel to the first one.
SMT is definitely a niche reference.
Well, yeah,
nobody
in
plays
America.
it. Yeah.
Because it's a Japan-only game.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That would be something we could talk about in the future, maybe, is SMT, because nobody knows squat about it.
Oh, I don't care.
And
I love those
SMT / Persona are fascinating just because the mechanics of the game are interesting, but also the things that you run into, you know.
Well, especially the SMT
when you run into Lucifer and Satan and all this stuff.
It's
a bizarre game.
I love the setting and like lore of the SMT games, especially the main series. That's my favorite.
We may get into that in a future episode. That would be fun to talk about. I did think it was funny. One thing that happened to me in this last playthrough that I've never had happen before was the very first place I went to was what's it called? The first place I went was Junktown, and I had no money. It's funny because I had weapons, ammo at the wazoo. I had metal armor, but I had no money.
Yeah.
Bottle caps are money in this game, by the way. So I went to Junktown. I talked to the doctor. I didn't even want him to do anything, but he inspected me. And he's like, okay, that'll be 10 caps.
Yeah.
I was like, well, and I had no option. I had no good speech option to deal with it.
Yeah.
I don't think my speech was high enough yet. And my charisma was too low to have a good speech option. So I said something, and he's like, oh, you don't have any money to pay? Well, I'll just take it out of you.
Yeah.
And his goons hold me down. He pulls an eyeball out of my head. That's never happened in my life. That is Fallout. I love that.
I've never had that happen. That's wild.
There's a great story in the game. I didn't find it this time, but you find out that that doctor is harvesting people's body parts. And the guy in the hub who's selling iguanas on a stick, he's actually selling human body parts
I never
as
knew that.
food.
Holy crap.
You can find the connection between that. The supply is the doctor from Junktown.
Yeah.
Bob is the one selling the food.
Yeah.
You can find a connection between those two and suss that
that's
whole thing
great.
out.
I didn't know that.
That's what I love about Fallout. There's so many stories. Like there's a guy in the hub who heard about me.
Yeah.
Because I had done something, killed somebody or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, look, somebody of your skill, I've got a job for you if you want it. So I was like, okay. I went and talked to the big bad guy, and he's like, I need you to take somebody out.
Yeah.
I'll give you 500 caps up front, 25 caps after the job is done. And it just sounded like just some guy. He wanted me to take out a guy, but he also wanted me to take out his wife.
Yeah.
His family. So just to get out of there, I said, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
He paid me 500 caps. I just never did it. And I never went back to where he was. So I just, I was like, I'm not doing that.
Nice.
But if you wanted to be a total scumbag, you can go down a whole route where you're dealing with gangsters, helping enforce, gangster, law, and like assassinating people and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I guess it's just like I cannot play evil characters like that. I really have a hard time doing
I can't
that.
either. I'm just incapable of it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, in this playthrough, I usually don't even steal stuff from people in their houses usually. But like, I had planned on playing kind of a roguish character, but I didn't quite. I mean, I still stole a lot of shit, but like, I just can't do the evil dialogue options.
I stole a few things, but my steal skill was bad, so I'd get caught. Sometimes.
I did. Whenever somebody asked me to help, I was like, yeah, I'll do it for a price.
Yeah.
But even that, I'm like, it takes me a lot of effort to do it.
To click that, I just can't do it.
I remember.
I do it for free.
I forget what he said.
I just do it for free.
But Aradesh in the first town, Shady Sands, when he asks you like help with the raiders or whatever, you say like, yeah, I'll do it. How much are you paying me? He like gives you a little stern look and talking to you about
it. There's so many great stories you can go through. You can find out who's stealing the Brahmin.
Yeah.
You can find out who's attacking the caravans. You can rescue Tandy from the raiders.
Yeah.
You can go through these various like gangster side quests. You can there's a guy named Gizmo who's like trying to take over the town of Junktown. You can take him out, or you can help Gizmo get rid of the sheriff. Basically, he calls himself the sheriff or whatever he is. You can fix either side, help either side. Tons of stuff. It's just full of great stories. So yeah. Fallout is so good. I love Fallout. You should play Fallout if you like those kinds of games.
I agree.
It's made by the same guys who worked on tons of other RPG games that you like, like Baldur's Gate, and some of these same people went on to create Icewind Dale and Planescape, and stuff like that. Vampire, the Masquerade, and Arcanum, and
then later you had some of the guys go to Obsidian.
Yeah, these are the guys. So we're talking about Interplay, and these guys became Black Isle, which is a part of Interplay. Yeah. They were like the RPG division, who became Troika and Obsidian. I don't know. They sort of spread out.
Troika that made Vampire Bloodlines one of the greatest games of all time.
One of the greatest. That'd be a fun game to talk
it's
about.
Kind of I mean, it's really pretty janky. I can understand why somebody wouldn't like it, but that's one of those games I can't play anymore because I played it so much. I've kind of ruined it for myself.
Well, it was so janky. That's one of those games where if you tried to play it when it came out, it would have been no fun and impossible because it was just so janky and crashed so much. It was so broken. But now people love it so much. It's been patched all over the place, and it's still janky.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But Vampire is so fun.
So good.
That game is so much freaking fun.
And that game, I especially like it with the Plus patch that adds in extra stuff. I think it adds in some extra songs, extra content, and stuff like that.
Are there any interesting mods for Fallout 1? I have not looked into that.
I know there are, but I don't know what they are.
I don't know exactly what you would do. I know there are tons of mods for the later ones, especially the 3D ones.
Those Bethesda engine games just get modded to shit.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. That's going to do it for us. That's the show today. We talked all about Fallout, man. We just love Fallout. I could talk about Fallout for another hour, easy.
Oh, yeah.
Just talking about past playthroughs and stupid stuff that's happened, but we definitely recommend Fallout. And if you're someone who has a limited amount of time on your hands, like us, adult life, Fallout is perfect because it's not some freaking 55-hour game like Final Fantasy VII, or it's not some 65-hour game like whatever the newest Dragon Quest is, or it's not some 120-hour game like Ghosts of Tsushima or The Witcher 3 or something like that. It's not some gigantic monstrous thing. You can just beat it. I didn't keep up with my time, but you can beat it in just a few hours. It's not a big deal.
I don't remember how much time. I think it might have been around 20 hours when I played it this time.
And it's one of those games that even if you don't beat the game, it's fun to just play it.
Yeah, of course.
It's one of those you can just jump in, play through. It's like it's sort of like all those Bethesda games, like Oblivion, Morrowind, Skyrim. You don't have to even play through the story. You can just play the game.
Yeah.
You spend an endless amount of time just doing just doing the quests and meeting people and solving their problems.
Oh yeah.
And that's fun enough.
God knows how much time I've spent in some of those Bethesda games, and the only one I've ever beaten is Oblivion.
Those freaking games are hard enough to beat. Those games are like impossible anyway. I don't know. That's your thing. That's not my thing.
Who knows how much time I've spent in...
I sort of hate all those games.
In Daggerfall.
Yeah,
and I've never beaten...
I love
Daggerfall. God, I love that game so
God,
much.
Daggerfall freaking sucks. Every town is the same. There are 48,000 towns. Every person in a town says the same thing.
Yeah, no, it absolutely sucks. But what I love about Daggerfall is just like how hard it like swings for the fences and how like far it misses. I don't know how to explain it.
Here, what's funny about Daggerfall is when you hear someone talk about their adventures in Daggerfall, it sounds incredible. Like, oh, dude, I went to so-and-so town. I was bitten by a vampire. So I turned into a vampire so I could only come out at night. So I decided to go into this town. I took out all the guards and blah, blah. I said, oh my God, this game sounds incredible. And then you play it and you're like, this sucks. These dungeons are impossible to get through. The mechanics are freaking boring. All the people say the same things. There are a million towns, but they're all the same.
It's buggy as shit. You definitely have to have cheat mode on where you can like go back to your last position or something like that. So you'll get stuck in walls and stuff like that. It's a game for people like me who, when you play video games, you have like kind of a hyperactive imagination.
Yeah.
And you start to like really get into it.
All the Bethesda games are like Oblivion and Morrowind and all that stuff. I don't want to play any of them.
Yeah.
But I love listening to people talk about playing them, and I love listening to people who love the games talk about them because they sound incredible.
The older Bethesda games are great. The newer ones are just like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff Bethesda does that I don't like. Well, there's just sometimes I just like crave that like Bethesda-iness. I've been playing Fallout 4 again recently, which I don't. It's good if you forget that it's a Fallout game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I fully admit that I'm a little snobby about Fallout. Look, if you like Fallout 3 and 4, that's great. It's not my thing. Exactly.
It's not. Yeah. It's not great.
But it's just like sometimes I just want that like. I just use the phrase Bethesda-iness in my head.
I think anybody who plays Bethesda games knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, they just have their own
game. Yeah.
Their own brand of sort of open world game, and sometimes I just crave it.
I understand. That's gonna do it. Bottom line, play Fallout. If you've enjoyed the episode, like and subscribe. That would help us enormously. The YouTube channel is growing, and we need you to help us out by clicking that subscribe button. Leave a comment below. Tell us what you think about Fallout. I love listening to people talk about their Fallout stories, so tell me whatever crazy thing you did in Fallout. What happened to you in Fallout? What you think about the first game? Which one is your favorite? Tell us in the comments because we would love to talk to you about it.
Yep.
Follow us on Spotify or Good Pods or Podchaser or whatever you use. Rate the show. Helps enormously. If you like, comment, subscribe, and rate. You are a superstar, and we love you for doing that and appreciate you for supporting the show. So thanks for listening. We'll see you again next Monday. Have a great week.